DoorDash was in my batch. They were trying to figure out how to optimize pizza deliveries to Stanford. If you fundamentally lie to them and say, hey, you can 100% control this, and the reality is they can only 40% control it, that's a gap, and that's like a huge gap in reality. If you're trying to avoid a problem, they just won't let you avoid the problem. You can have a great team in a bad market. It's not going to work. You can have a bad team in a good market. It might work. Good way of summarizing YC. How do you operate on the world in a real, it's like almost like a science, in like a reliable way?
If you were to count from 1 to 300, it might take you 7 or so years. If you were going by episodes of the Fervent Four, here we are, Tim Ryan, episode 300. 300. Who would have thunk it that two lads would have gotten here? But congratulations. Favorite memories of the show?
Man, there's a lot. We've had some good laughs. We've had some, I don't know. The thing that I appreciate, though, is the knowledge that is passed on. We have learned a lot along the way, and that's what it's about for me. But I like learning. I'm always a listener. You know, I'm definitely the guy that doesn't say a whole lot. I listen, and that's what I don't know. I feel like I have learned so much from listening to 300 guests, or today will be 300 guests. It's pretty special. How about you?
Well, it's a unique experience to walk down memory lane in some cases, to learn about certain institutions, companies, projects that people are working on, things that are going on in town, an opportunity to reach out to people across the world, I think is a cool thing. It's a good hour to spend with you. Enjoy that. And sometimes it's an opportunity like today to reminisce and reach back out to people that were part of your life many moons ago and say, hey, want to chat?
Dude, today is going to, today's going back. We're going
What's
way
unique
back
about this? What's unique about this, Tim, is I did a little research beforehand to find something. Did not get any permission to not do what I'm about to do. But I thought it would be good to
I think I remember this.
Bring back something. So I met today's guest, Glen Moriarty, 7 Cups, I believe through Paul DiNardo, formerly of Wall, Ironhorn, and Chernicher. I believe they got acquired or something in there. You were doing the ed tech at the time. I think Paul was like, hey, Zach's doing this cool stuff with Hatch. You guys should meet. I believe that's is that the correct connection? Am I?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Pull that one out, huh, Tim? That was crazy.
I never knew what that connection was because, man, this was like the start of my journey. I mean, I just remember getting an invite from you. I remember telling my wife about it. I get this email saying, hey, we're all going up to Northern Virginia in a van. Do you want to go along with us? And I was like, I just remember going, man, I have no idea what I'm getting.
It was an excursion. It was an excursion, Tim. It's funny,
and but as I say, you know, that life begins outside of your comfort zone, and I took a chance. And
is that where you met Glenn?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I should have predicted this. I had no idea that you were going to bring this up, but it's really good. It's just funny. I hadn't even thought about that. But that was a great
of 7 cups of tea. This is the car pitch. Or the excursion pitch. I like that. So, life is hard, and I was sitting there talking to my wife about my problems, and she helped listen to me. And I immediately thought, God, this is great. I feel so much better. There's so many people in our world that don't have somebody close that they can talk to. And, sometimes see people on Facebook, like, crying out for help or, like, looking for some help. Or maybe you're talking to a friend, and you kind of share it, and they don't really listen to you. They're not really hearing you. So most people are just too busy, or they just don't know how to really listen. So, and I'm also a psychologist. So the way that people try to solve this problem is either through therapy or through talking to family and friends. And some of us are fortunate to have good listeners in our life, but a lot of us don't. So what if there was a solution that wasn't therapy, but basically certified active listeners, people that were all about you? So They practice active listening skills, which are research-backed skills that help people feel understood, like paraphrasing, touching on emotion, summarizing. So you just simply think of Air Bed and Breakfast or whatever. There's a catalog of listeners. You pick one that you like that shares your interests. There's a phone bridge. You call in, or you pick a time, you call in, it connects you automatically to the active listener. The active listener sets a rate, whatever it could be. It could be 20 bucks an hour, it could be 50 bucks an hour, whatever. And we collect a small transaction fee, basically 30% of the deal. And the idea.
All right. Do you remember? Do you remember that day at all?
Oh yeah, totally. I remember that day. Yeah, you shared that video with me a while ago, and I remember
It's
it.
13 years old.
What was the month on that? I mean,
it had to have been March, because I think the event was in March of 2012. Yeah. The event is the CIT Gap 50. We actually talked to Tim and I had a meeting with CIT, which is now VIPC. Don't ask me what that stands for. In an acronym town, there's too many, even though it's a statewide thing.
The Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, but I can't remember what CIT was.
Center for Innovative Technology.
That's right.
So we're talking to the fine folks there, and they were like, oh, it was a one-time thing. We didn't realize how many people enjoyed it. I was like, oh, it was great. We took an excursion up there. We heard the 7 Cups pitch. It's fun reminiscing. I had to find that. It took me like 30 minutes to find it last night. I found it. I had to figure out how to download it.
Thanks for finding it and sharing it. Yeah, that was so early. That was pre-YC. That was, I mean, obviously some of the things were right. Some of the things were wrong, but but that's how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's probably in March. I believe what happens next is then you go up there. Did you win one of the entrepreneur awards?
I don't think so. I think I won one in your Norfolk one. You did like a Norfolk-based one, and I think we won that one or got second place or something. Yeah.
Okay. So we go up to the CIT Gap 50. Myself, the lady in there, Brittany Hoffman of Date Night. She's one of them. That was Bo Turner next to her.
Yeah.
I don't know if in that video Kristen Fitch was noticeable, but she also shows up in that video a little later on. It's just crazy. We have that Keith Brevet's driving his excursion at the time, which holds about 37 people. Tim is somewhere in that car. I guess I'm in the front. Tim, are you across?
I think I must have been right behind you.
Okay.
That's why I wasn't in the angle.
Got it. And then, so we go there. Then a couple weeks later, we have Start Norfolk 3. I think it was Start Norfolk 3, the biggest one we had, 400 or 500 people there. You got second place there.
Okay.
Then from there, a couple weeks, I think literally within weeks, you tell me, I'm going to California. I'm a finalist for YC.
Yeah.
Then you get into YC, you go there. Sounds like 2012 was a crazy pivotal year. Ashton Kutcher almost invests in you, or does invest in 7 Cups. I remember hearing at some point during that situation. Let's walk us through 2012. That was a wild year for you.
Yeah, it was actually, we ended up doing it. We went to YC in 2013. So there was some kind of gap there.
Okay, close enough.
Yeah, close enough. But yeah, so after that, YC had, it was kind of a fantasy to go to Y Combinator. And, I was in the startup space with you and thinking about all this stuff and trying to figure out how this all works. And YC is kind of like the mecca for startups in some ways. And so, I asked my wife, because we had 4 kids, and it's a military town. So we were friends with a bunch of folks in the military, and she said it was okay to go for it because it was a 3-month exercise or opportunity. So we treated it like a deployment. So I applied, and then they were like, yeah, we'd like to have you come out, which is when I told you. And I chose the last interview slot because it was only 10 minutes of an interview. And it felt like, for me at that time, it felt kind of insane to fly from Virginia Beach to California for a 10-minute interview. But that was just how they did it. And so I thought, if it goes long, there's probably a good shot that we're in. If it doesn't go long, maybe it just wasn't interesting to them. And so, I had my interview. It was with the main person who ended up being our main partner at YC was Paul Paul Buchheit, who is the creator of Gmail and the Facebook feed. And he was also our first angel investor. And they the interview went, I think, 18 minutes, which felt like an eternity, I think. And they said, okay, we'll call you if you're in. But if you don't get a call, you're not in. And so then I went down to downtown Mountain View, got a drink, was just relaxing. And then I got a call from a Palo Alto number. And of course, I don't know anybody from Palo Alto. And it turned out it was Paul. And he said, we'd like to make you an offer to come to YC. And I absolutely couldn't believe it. It was totally mind blowing. And then, went back out like a month later and was there for 3 months. And it's like a little bit of like the special forces training for startups. Super brutal, super challenging, super interesting, like incredibly interesting. But yeah, we ended up raising all in 2 million in seed money when we launched, or $1 million in seed money coming out of that. And then we got another $1 million kind of along the way. And then all great, really, really awesome early angels. So Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, PB, who I already mentioned, Alexis Ohanian, the founder of Reddit, Adam D'Angelo, who was the CTO of Facebook, a whole bunch of other I couldn't ask for like a more kind of dream team of Gary Tan, who's now the president of YC. Couldn't ask for a more dream team of early angel investors. But yeah, and it's just been a journey ever since.
Who was the president of YC at that time?
Paul Graham still. So Paul Graham was still, so back then you would meet with partners for 15-minute windows. And we did I spent hours with PG. I've got this great pic of him. I can send it over if you want it, but it's the first time he's looking at 7 Cups. He's chatting with a listener. Because we ended up moving from audio, as described in that video, to messaging because audio was too threatening for people. But PG was the first, and we would do walk and talks for 10, 15 minutes, and just a brilliant, part of the beauty of that was it's not necessarily the knowledge, the knowledge is good knowledge. It's good, insightful information. But there's something about the context of the knowledge. It's like you learn the knowledge in relationships, or you learn it in groups, or you learn it kind of in this way. And so the knowledge gets encoded, in a very unusual way. And I think that's really what makes the magic of YC work.
And young YC at that point, right? I feel like YC, Y Combinator, Techstars, all these accelerators in 2013. The word accelerator was really a private thing back then. Now I feel like it's kind of, I don't know that a commodity is the right word, but it's definitely become a lot of people are using the word accelerator as the thing that they're doing. It was a very exclusive class for you guys to have gone through that. Less than a decade old, I believe YC was at that point. Just going through that, is there a big lesson learned, to be such an early stage thing? One thing that you still think about 13 years later that, hey, that was pretty cool that I was able to go through?
I feel so thankful. That's why I was so flabbergasted that we got in, because there was only, in my batch, I think there were 50 or 55 companies. And they would say, there's a multi-billion-dollar company in this batch, and everybody was like, okay, because they have so many billion-dollar companies. And DoorDash was in my batch, and they were trying to figure out how to optimize pizza deliveries to Stanford. And it was called group office hours, where you have 8 companies, eight founders, co-founders in a room, and the partners were, more or less, but basically if you're trying to avoid a problem, they just won't let you avoid the problem. And they're just going to, keep reorienting you to the problem until you're honest about it. And I just remember sitting in the room with those guys and thinking, there's food delivery people. There are there are people that are pizza delivery people. Like, how on earth are you guys going to compete and actually make a business in the food delivery business? And of course, now it's like, I just had to buy a new toilet for my house, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to DoorDash this?" And I was like, "What?" So, anyways, it's kind of insane. But I think the key mantra from YC, which is I think appropriate for most startups, is build something people love, or build something people want. Like, and that is, I think, the core of the product market fit hypothesis. Like, in most startups, the market is going to win, like the kind of legendary Andreessen advice. Like, you can have a great team in a bad market, it's not going to work. You can have a bad team in a good market, it might work. And so just really figuring out what is it that people want is just core. And if you got that, you got a shot, I think.
Any other notables that were in your batch?
Other notables in my batch. I mean, a bunch of them have made like loads of money. I mean, like just tons of money, but nothing close. I don't know what DoorDash is worth now. I think last time I checked, it was like 60 billion or something, like something absurd. Just crazy. And they keep cranking them out, but there's only 55 companies in my batch. It wasn't a big deal. They had gone to 80 the year before me, and then it broke in some ways. And so then they were like, all right, let's dial it back in, get back to basics, which they did. And now there's like, I don't know, hundreds, I think, in a batch, and they do it a bunch of times a year. I have a friend at the Orange Collective, which is an angel fund, and they invest almost primarily in YC companies. And it's just insane how much it's grown and how well it's done.
If I recall, you were the first year that they upped the money too, because back then, way back when, they were giving small amounts of money, tens of thousands of dollars, and then I think they gave you like $1.18 or something like that, something north of 100.
It was 80 for us, but that was.
Okay.
But you're right, it was up. I think it was like, I don't know, 50 before that, and then
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but it was like lower. But the 80 grand was like so helpful.
Sure.
DoorDash market cap is 79.55 billion.
So they've bumped since the last time I checked. It's remarkable. The thing is, you have to. I mean, there's a really good investor in the Valley, Keith Raboy, and he was their main investor, and I chatted with him quite a bit, and it was like, if you get the right people, you can figure things out. Like you need the right people to figure things out. And if you get them, you can make a $79 billion food delivery business.
Man, it's amazing. Just the names that you've listed in the first 17 minutes of this show. I mean, like, those are like the all-star players that are really running the Valley and the startup scene.
And they were not that big of a deal. I mean, they were big deals then, but they weren't like anywhere near the big deals that they are now, which is a testament to their, I think it was a testament to their ability to operate on the world. That might be a good way of summarizing YC. How do you operate on the world it's like almost like a science, in like a reliable way. And those guys, they know how to operate on the world.
Yeah,
something that would be
give up.
Not give up. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't give up either. True.
Something that would be cool. I don't know if they do this, but let's say your class, your cohort, 55 people, they give every founder a small piece of every business, so that the one that does go, you get a piece of that pie for some. I don't know if there's any groups that do that. That would be kind of cool though. That way you would, have some cut of 79 billion from that piece.
Yeah, I think what they've done nice is you and I, we were talking about building community earlier, is they built a really good community so people look out for each other. So you might not get necessarily an equity stake, but you get the benefit of the collective intelligence. And that ends up being, it can translate into impact, it can translate into monetary value. But they have done a nice job of, I think, building that piece to it.
One of the things that stood out to me when you were talking about it was demo day. and how they did demo day back then. You know, share with us. It was almost like if I remember right, it was like an auction. You did your pitch, and then people were like, "Yeah, pencil me in for X amount," and that's how everything ended up to be in terms of raising money on demo day.
Yeah, that's right. It was so what's weird about one of the things that I didn't know about YC is they have you do this when you're about, I don't know, a third of the way through, they have everybody do a pitch in front of the whole batch. And I bombed. I mean, I did pretty bad. Like because I didn't know you were supposed to. They tell you not to prepare, but then you do it, and then it's like, however you do, if you don't prepare, then obviously you don't do a good job. And so I didn't do a good job on demo, on the practice kind of round. And then you spend weeks practicing, and you only get a 3-minute pitch. And like ours was in the Computer Science Museum in Silicon Valley. And so you pitch the night before to the alumni, and then you pitch the next day to the investors, and they bring all the best investors in the world. And then you do your 3-minute, it's only 3 minutes. That's it. And it's live, and you're on this, you're on the stage. I actually have that video too. I can find it and share it with you if you want. But I did the pitch, and then what they do is they have like a little gadget back then where it wasn't even an app, and where they're like, if an investor is interested in you, they send you a message, and then what happens is you go and there's like little meals, little hors d'oeuvres in between the sessions, and then they come and they say, okay, hey, I'm so and so, like Charlie Cheever, who was a co-founder of Quora, as an example, came over and was like, hey, I like what you're doing. I think it's smart. I'll give you 50 grand for whatever your valuation is. And then you shake on it, you literally shake on it. And then you send them an email that just says subject line, like 50 grand investment, 7 cups, and then they pull out their phone and they say confirmed. And then you send them the documentation. At that time, they had a service called Clerky, which was just like a very easy way to like wire money, get deals done fast. And then they just basically sign the docs because it's all standardized. Again, that was part of the brilliance of YC, is they standardized everything. So it was just so much easier. And for these guys, like a lot of these guys, the difference between Hampton Roads, it's just like there's not, and that's why it's like hats off to you guys for all the great work you do. There's so many wins in the Valley that there's just this like loads of liquidity. So it, like that kind of thing I just talked about is not really a big deal. It's like pretty normal and basic. But yeah, it was insane. So then, we raised $1 million, 1.1. I could not wait to get home, back to Virginia Beach at that time. My family did come out for a month in the middle of that, but I was like really ready to get back. And then we ended up raising another $1 million like a couple years later, a year later. And that was it.
At the time, you were called 7 Cups of Tea. My guess is at some point you watched Social Network, the movie, saw Justin Timberlake look at actor looking at as Mark Zuckerberg, and he says, remove the. Did that inspire you removing the T and going with 7 cups instead? What was the inspiration on shortening 7 cups of tea to just 7 cups?
We had 7 Cups of Tea. The name is after a Chinese poem, which is on our FAQ page if anybody's interested. But the basic idea is every time you drink a cup of tea, you go to another level of healing. And we wanted to make it so that getting help was like having a cup of tea with a friend, rather than like going and getting an intake and a diagnosis and a treatment plan, like all the stuff you have to do to go see a therapist or a psychologist. And so we had a really, really smart SEO guy, our head of growth, the same guy I mentioned earlier, actually. But really, so he said, hey, look, 7 Cups of Tea is just too long of a URL. You got to change it to 7 Cups. And we were like, okay. So we bought the URL, and our traffic got crushed. I remember actually my son was playing basketball in Norfolk, one of the little leagues around there. And I remember sitting in the cafeteria of the gym of the school, looking at our traffic on Google Analytics, and it had like halved, and it was like, oh no. And it was like, oh yeah, it's going to take 6 months for it to come back. It ended up taking, I think, like 18 months. It was just brutal. And so the lesson learned on that is that the Google network, the Google bots is a brain. And if you think you can just shift the neuronal structure of the brain by changing your URL and doing all the forwards and everything else, just at least back then, it didn't work that way. So if you have a long name, keep your long name. It's okay.
Wow. That went a different direction. I thought you were going to say you checked your analytics and like things tripled, or they're about to. Wow,
No.
That's crazy.
No, it was very painful. Yeah, it was like, ouch.
I remember having conversations back in the day with some of the fine folks at DE, and they would talk about how just one Google update back in the day would take them, they were at number one on many of their categories, and an update would change and they would go to 3 overnight, and how just detrimental to the bottom line that would be. And it's crazy. So to think of a company that's that high on, or companies that are that high on certain spaces, like I can't imagine it being what that would be like for you, who were, still in the infancy, trying to grow, to then see traffic drop 30, 40, 50, 60%. I mean, it's hard. Did you have bad days where you were using 7 Cups yourself, trying to figure out how to get through it, or what did you do to push through?
Yeah, I mean, 13, we're almost at 13 years now. I've had like a lot of bad days on 7 Cups. Early on, I would use it for sure. I would go in as a member, and I would say, I have this very hard engineering problem. I would pretend I was an engineer because I couldn't say, hey, I'm the founder of this thing, and it's like killing me. I would say, hey, I'm an engineer. I have this really difficult problem to solve. I have a lot of people counting on me, and it's extremely complicated, and I don't know how to solve it. And people would listen to me. Sometimes I would cry because it was so difficult. But yeah, you get through it, and you just keep going. Like we were saying earlier, you just never quit, even though it can be, incredibly challenging.
Man, crazy. What? So you started with active listeners, and you where it was audio, and then you went to text. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
And where do things stand now?
So we started with audio. We used a service called Plevo, which is a lot like Twilio. And so what would happen is people that needed help, we're in part of the SEO thing too, is like we were the first free mental health service. So we got like links from all over the world, and we didn't have, now if you're a mental health company, to get a single user, the CAC, the client acquisition cost or customer acquisition cost, is about $200 because there's so much money in the health space. But back then, there was no service like that. So everybody just linked to us, which is why we have good domain authority and all those other elements that are key to growth now. But people would find us, and then they would call, and if you were a listener, your phone would ring. And so we had like 200 listeners, and we would call everybody at the same time. And then whoever picked up the phone, exactly like that video, we would bridge them, and there was no cost, no charge. And of course, I was watching this like a hawk. And so I would wait to see, is anybody going to pick up? And nobody, like a lot of time, nobody would pick up. So I would pick up. And so I was listening like 12 hours a day, sitting on my couch in Mountain View, listening. My wife helped me. Some other folks helped me. And then it became clear, we started interviewing some of the users, and I was like harassing my family and friends. Zach, I probably bugged you to try it. And what we learned was that when somebody needs help, any kind of friction, anything that makes it difficult makes them much less likely to get help. And so the idea that I am making a demand or an ask on you to listen to me ended up being a blocker for people, because people felt bad about that. And then they felt vulnerable, and they didn't want to hear the process. Technical name for it is prosody, the emotion in the other person's voice, in their own voice. They didn't want to be heard in that kind of an intimate, vulnerable way. And so then we were like, okay, do you want to, what if we just did messaging, like anonymous messaging? So like nobody knows who you are, and you just chat, you just say what's going on in your mind, and then somebody, does active listening via messaging back. So they paraphrase, they summarize, they empathize, they use all the good listening skills. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. The other kind of funny thing about it too, and Zach, this harkens back to that Norfolk 3, is we thought the reason we got second place was we thought this was going to be for parents of children with disabilities. We thought they would be like delighted to get the emotional caregiver support. And then we went through YC, school was out because it was the summer. So like there was no stress for any of these parents. And so like that whole thesis bombed fast. And then that's when we figured out it was just that people that were in emotional pain that needed help. They needed to be cared for, people that were struggling or going through a hard time.
What's interesting about that is I was thinking about Start Norfolk 3, which I guess was in 2013, probably is the dates. And what's interesting about that is for years, Tim and I have been working on events, kind of like pitch competition events. That's what Start Norfolk was. There's now, that's retired. There's now something called Start Peninsula in town. It's all virtual, done via Zoom, multiple competitions throughout the year. Really, really, really cool. An opportunity for people to pitch their business, startpeninsula.com. But what's interesting about pitch competitions in general is people get so pressed and so like pissed off when they don't win. Right. And I always say this as the guy who had created Start Norfolk back in the past, like, yo, like screw these judges, screw the crowd. Like right. They don't know what they're talking about unless they're a customer. And a lot of the times it's really hard to find someone to be the correct customer of, at your thing. I think there's probably 50 people pitching. Not everyone's going to be a customer in that, so right. You're trying to get people to grasp what it is. It's not that the judges aren't great people and they aren't the right opportunities, but right. It's like, hey, like you can't worry about you not winning on this thing. If you're truly in this for the mission at hand, then just keep going. This is just a little blip. And so the amount of people though, that would get so pressed on that, it's unfortunate because it's like a lot of these things that they pitch or they're working on early in their business careers. I'm like, hey, there is something there, but you can't worry that, Sally and Johnny across the street don't like it. Who cares? Find the right people and you got it. So I appreciate it. Is funny though. Like, you think about your cohort at Start Norfolk. I think it's 7 Cups, Carrie Norfolk got acquired by Satva, which was I believe $1 billion mattress company. They bought the logistics arms of and probably others in there that I can't even think of. It's just like, hey, like it's the weekend. Like it's a one-time thing. You kept going with it. I love that. And as we think about 300 episodes of the show and the last 2 decades or so that we've been doing this, you can't worry about a couple of minutes where you get to pitch to someone. It's so it can be so meaningful, but so like lackluster at the same time as to that thing. So, 757 Makerspace, they're still going strong. I mean, just like, it's crazy.
I think that's a great point. I mean, it's that like that the idea that the map. I think what you're illuminating is like there's a saying like the map is not the territory. So like if you confuse a judge's feedback with the territory, with the way that the actual world works, you're going to be, you're missing, you don't have the right map. Like the real map comes from your customers. And then you have to like, they'll tell you the map, and then you have to build something that's consistent with that map. And I think that's a great point. Like a lot of times, advisors or judges or whoever, they just really do not understand the territory. They don't understand the actual landscape. And so they might impose a map, like a Boston map on Chicago. And like the Boston map is not a good fit for Chicago. And you only get the Chicago map if you talk to people in Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I'm very, very clear with everyone that pitches. Like the judges are just but 3 opinions. And the only loser in this competition, if you call it a competition, are the ones that quit. You know, it's just take what they have to say, listen to the feedback, apply it or don't, and then come back. But it's just 3 opinions.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Makes it less like all or nothing for folks.
Yeah.
And it goes back to your point about, you had a thesis, probably some customer discovery on there. And then when you actually put it into place, they didn't work. So you had to figure it out again. Right. And I think that's where sometimes these education style things can be a difficult avenue for people to grasp. Where it's like, oh, well, it seems like that's a lane. Well, that's entrepreneurship ain't a lane.
Yeah. I totally agree.
That's just it. Yeah.
It's the meta skill of figuring it out. Like that's what you have to do. And in some ways, like the whole startup pitch thing it's good in the sense that it's a competition and there's a way to figure it out. And so if you can figure it out, like that's a good skill. And then that skill generalizes, but ultimately it's the meta skill of figuring things out. That's what you have to keep going. And like people look at like, the iPhone or whatever other product, or like, we're talking about DoorDash or whatever. There's like millions of things that have to be figured out. And so the real skill is the figuring out. That's just never going to end. So you just have to get as good as you can at figuring it out, because a startup really is it's a group problem solving effort. That's all it is. So your team is a group of people, and you guys just have to solve problems together. And so the more you do that, the more progress you can make.
Yeah, the thing that I appreciate hearing from you is just how tough YC was, in the sense of identifying the pain point that the founders had and just kept pressing and pressing and pressing to solve whatever challenge that you have. Whereas some of the founders in the area here, I'm always very clear to say, hey, can I give you some feedback? Can I, just to ensure that they are ready for it. But, sometimes that tough feedback is hard for people to hear. And, full on well, when you're at YC, like, we're going to press you and you may cry, but you got to solve this first.
Yeah. I think for them, part of it is what is really, because I'm fascinated from a psychological perspective. It's like, how do you find founders that are going to make it, right? And I thought they had like some kind of really robust metric system for predicting this. And they have, and like you can look at the application, like anybody can download the application and look at the questions. And there are good questions, but there's not like a robust analytics
Really?
model behind it. There really isn't. I think they're phenomenally good at it. I mean, like obviously you can't argue the results. But I had thought, man, because if you can find folks like that, like what I really care about is social impact. And so like if you can find folks like that to make social impact, we could change the world at a faster clip. So I was very curious about that. And it's not as predictable as you would think, because it's a much more complex problem than it seems. But yeah, the core part of it, and it is hard because there's normal social rules. And Tim, I think that's what you're pointing to, is it's like, a normal, like and I had friends that would come out and visit and meet folks. These folks are not, your heart, what you feel, what you think, it's really not, it doesn't really matter. Like when I was there, the song was a big song at the time was the Imagine Dragon song, on Radioactive. Like, and the whole theme of the song is like, I'm a machine, basically. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I was basically a machine. And if you're a machine, you don't have a lot of feelings. And so, and the other part of it is like, look, if brilliant people are going to give you their time, they're not going to listen to you because they're way smarter than you. And they're going to tell you things that you need to know. And so you just got to listen. And so, like, if it's painful when they're interrupting you and talking over you and, treating you like you're less intelligent, they're probably right. And so, but what they're telling you is gold. So you have to listen. But it's definitely not there for your feelings. They're trying to make you, like Paul Graham has a essay called Relentlessly Resourceful. They just want to make you as formidable as possible. Like, you're just never going to quit. You're just never going to quit. You're going to be super strong, super tough. And all that's baked into it. But yeah, you're right. If you have a filter that says, I only get feedback when people are nice to me, you're going to have to be right like almost all of the time, which is unlikely.
I mean, it makes sense. They want their bet to not be quit on. Right. So if they're baking that into you, something that's, I feel like this is something that is newly over since Seven Cup starting, that in the past was kind of, I don't know if frowned upon is the right word, but like talking about mental health, men crying, having emotions, things like that. Like, what changed to have these things be socially acceptable, to become a thing that could become a business and be talked about and all of this stuff? Because I don't know, growing up, I feel like that wasn't something that really was a thing. It was different. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like the whole stigma thing, thankfully, has been decreased dramatically. I think we've had a lot more, people be more real and be vulnerable and be honest. Like I was more honest and vulnerable about that part of me getting help. And I've been through therapy and I've got all kinds of help throughout my life from great people that have looked out for me. I think part of it is a stigma reduction. Like, I think it's a very deliberate campaign, just like smoking was like, totally normal. And like when I was a kid, everybody smoked. I mean, my parents smoked like chimneys. They had ashtrays on planes. Like, people would just smoke on planes. And now it's in no shade on smokers at all. Like, I've still people like, plenty of folks in my family smoke and doesn't bother me at all, but they were able to decrease smoking. And so I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is society is getting more challenging. And so like, Zach, if you think back to when you were younger, there were more resources. Like, people, it didn't cost, like we were joking, my old house in Norfolk is probably worth $1 million now. But like, it was 300 grand, or it was 200 grand when I bought it, which felt like a ton of money. But if you 5X that and you 5X I think the average person, like back then, let's say like maybe the stress level was like this. And I think now the average stress level is like this. And so you've got this just enormous tax on people. And so mental health, another way of saying mental health is just saying human suffering, human difficulties. And it can express in different ways. You might be anxious, like a startup person. If a startup person is not anxious, they're probably not going to make it. There can be healthy expressions of anxiety, but there can also be unhealthy expressions of anxiety. And so if you look at the stats, depression, anxiety, substance use, relationship problems, addictions, et cetera. Like all of that has gone up. And I think that's, pretty correlated with like how difficult the world is now. And so there becomes an increasing, and like social media, especially in adolescent females, like there's all kinds of things that have accelerated that process. Like, not to go on a tangent, but like AI, like when AI is now taking over entry level jobs. AI is taking a lot of computer science jobs. Like AI is going to disrupt all these industries. And so as you've got less jobs, you've got more stress, and you're going to have more mental health challenges because people are trying to cope. And so I think it's more like it can't be denied because the difficulties are more obvious.
One of the things that I find, I want to go circle back around to just the psychology of being a founder, and you being, so, I mean, this is your profession, and just what is it? I'm trying to think how to put it. Is it the culture of YC that only the toughest of the tough apply, or, I mean, it's just, I don't know. The mental toughness that you have to have, is that something that you're born with? Is that something that you can be taught, that you can be coached through? Because it's really hard. I mean, especially when you're scaling, one of those people that are scaling a startup to be that company that's going to be worth multiple $1 billion someday. I mean, like, it is inevitable that you are going to hit multiple crucible moments in that career, and not everyone is cut out for that. I mean, it's just, I would love to hear what your thoughts are in terms of, is it just that's how that person is wired to be able to handle that kind of stress?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like nature and nurture components to it, like perseverance, how much grit you have, how much determination. There are, my personal hypothesis on this is like, if you have kind of a difficult childhood, like I had a pretty difficult childhood, so I endured a lot. I had a lot of pain, and that is kind of a good setup in some ways, because like if you can make it through in your kind of early years, if it's difficult and you can make it through it, you kind of have a much higher pain tolerance than most other folks. So I think, but I mean, obviously that can go sideways too. Like you can have a very difficult life there where you never really recover. So and you don't want any of that. Like, so I have 4 kids, and I want them to have that kind of grit and strength and power. But I don't want them to experience unnecessary pain. So like what I did as a dad was, we would do things like challenges. Like I did a ton of challenges with them. Like, okay, we're at the playground, and now you got to climb, and like all the other parents would be like, this guy's crazy. But it'd be like, okay, you got to climb over the top of, you got to make it all the way over the top of these, these things that are like 10 feet, 12 feet up, and you got to walk across this, you got to do this, and you got to jump. And they loved it. And I did it like in small amounts. Like, okay, we're going to do this. This is because there's a thing called self-efficacy, which is this idea that like life is like in a video game, you start and the levels are really easy, right? And so like there's not really a tutorial. The first level is the tutorial, and then you get the next challenge is like this. It's like a little bit harder, but not too much harder. But if you were to take somebody who's like at a level 1 and you put them on a level 8, right? They can't do it. The gap is too far. And so the kind of the ultimate way to do it is you don't want things, it's like an upside down U, which I'm trying to do here. You don't want things too easy, and you don't want things too hard. So you want it like right in this middle part here, the top of the U, where it's optimized. And then what happens is the person's confidence, they can master the skill and then they get that confidence boost, and then the next level up, and then the next level up, the next level up. So that's why that's why video games are so attractive to people, because they're so measured so that you're that way. And that's why startups are so tough, because the gaps between what's required to figure things out, they're huge. And, then you have timing elements. There's like a whole bunch of variables in a startup beyond persistence, intelligence, capabilities, but you have to optimize for all those things as much as you can. So, I have an awesome wife. She's a therapist. We raised our kids. And this is what I think is the core to any good leadership too, is high warmth and high expectations. So like, I really love you. I got your back. I'm here for you. And I expect a lot from you too. And so, and that's, I think, how you really help people excel. But yeah, I'm sure there's like other parts to it, just genetically and otherwise that are wired in, but I don't have any real insights beyond that.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating though, because I mean, Zach and I have seen it with just a number of founders that we've worked with. I mean, it's like we get a new founder that we start talking to, and we're like, dude, we've seen this movie so many times. We know the behaviors. We know what you're going to endure before you even endure it. And so it's like, you come in, you're super excited. We're going to start this business. Then you have the first challenge. And then like one day goes by that you don't come into the space. And then that turns into two. And then you just get deeper in your dark hole of depression. And the next thing you know, it's just like, man, it's just too much. And it's just like, gosh, if you
deuces, I'm out.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, if you would have just told us
right
up front, you waited too long and now we can't help you, or it's going to become very difficult to help you. But that's just,
but don't you think that's, I mean, that kind of gets back to the mental health aspect of it. It's like founders have like this already like mental problem wanting to be founders, right? I'm sure there's actually like, if we were to like look at the brains, like they're like something's like chemically imbalanced or us like going after these things. And then somewhere in there, a lot of us are terrified to tell someone, hey, shit ain't looking good. There's this pride aspect of it. So then there's this other chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
So you like, I'm somewhat joking of something, but like, I'm sure somewhere in there, like there is like this, something's a little screwy. And it is weird though, that people want to tell a lie instead of telling people, hey, like things aren't that great. We're only at this amount of money or whatever it is. And it's just it's odd.
I think it's a good point on the brain thing. There's a book called The Hypomanic Edge that's worth checking out. But the basic idea is that, it might be correlated with some level of like extra energy or however you want to frame that. But that's worth looking at. And yeah, I think Zach, your point is great. It's there's a and part of it is there's a fantasy, like we're like a founder can only control about 40% of the variables that make a startup successful. That's it. You only have 40%. So like, that means you don't control 60%, which is huge. Like any other enterprise in your life, like if I want to go exercise today, it's like 100%. I can do that, barring something, me hurting myself in some way. And so you've got this kind of ridiculously hard thing you're trying to do. All the startup lure or is like, you can control this 100%. And it's just not accurate. Like that's a fundamental lie. Like it's just false. And so if you teach people that are trying to do really hard things, if you fundamentally lie to them and say, hey, you can 100% control this, and the reality is they can only 40% control it, that's a gap, and that's like a huge gap in reality. And then so the more honest way is like, hey, you got 40% of this, do your best with the 40%, like all kinds of things are going to go sideways and go wrong, and that's okay. And like the other part of it is like you're human and you have a brain, and even if you're super bright, like even if you're crazy bright, the brain is wired to make mistakes. Like it is not a truth. It's optimized to help you survive. It's not optimized to help you tell the truth about the world. And so you're just fundamentally limited, and the primary organ that you use to navigate life is also very flawed and very limited. And so it's almost like people have to get oriented to that at the very, very beginning. And in the startup culture, we don't do a good job of that. And then you supplement, Tim, exactly as you're saying. So it's like, if you know this, you're going to be in a lot of pain and there's going to be challenges, and like, you cannot do it on your own. So it's just par for the course. Like everybody's going to go through really difficult times. So get that support. Like my wife has picked me up off the battlefield many times, and put me back together again. And I'm super thankful for that. And I've got, really good family and friends that have looked out for me, but there's no way you get through this without making a ton of mistakes and missing the ball and like things going sideways that you have no control over. And that's just reality.
Fascinating. I mean, it's
so well put, Humpty Dumpty. So well,
I know.
So well put.
Yeah,
it took 300 episodes to use that phrase, Humpty Dumpty. Glenn put it all back together, or his wife did. Kudos for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Believe me, if you don't have the support, you're just not going to make it. It's too tough.
Yeah, it is. Man, it is so hard. It is so many things have to go right, and one thing can just shift everything. It's it's not easy.
Is this now? This is a psychologist term, is a process comment. So a process comment is this okay? Is it okay that we're talking about all of this in such an honest and forthright way?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, dude, I think about I have so many things just rushing through my head in terms of what has gone right, what has not gone right, how do I get through it? You've really sparked a lot in terms of like me as a father and parenting, how, like we would gamify things as well in terms of like, hey, we are going to play the cleaning game, and whoever can clean this part of the house the fastest wins, and like that totally changed the dynamics of cleaning a house, because it was about winning at that point. So
yes,
there's
what do you win?
That you won, like that. You got the bragging rights that you beat your brother or you beat your sister. I mean, but it's just with that. I mean, like I think that instilled a lot of things within our kids. That, to your point, hey, we want the best for you. We love you, but our expectations are super high, and as a result, they put super high expectations on themselves, and it has done well for them. So I'm going to celebrate I'm going to take the win on that one, that we unknowingly did something right.
Good job. It's not easy. Just like being a parent is also not easy,
dude. Yeah, it's
all things like there's most of life is not easy, but everybody pretends. In the startup space, the pretending is just at a higher level.
Well, and it goes back to what we were talking about before we went live, was like making sure that you celebrate all your wins. I mean, if you did nothing but focus on those losses, granted, you learn more from the L's that you take, but you've got to celebrate every single win, because man, that things can change in an instant.
Yeah, you have to proactively. There's a strategy called proactive coping, where you boost your resources like your battery. You charge it up, so when you get hit, you go down, but you don't go down. Whereas if you don't do that, you're too close to the bottom.
There you go.
What is it, man? This was a really fast hour. I would love to continue going on, because I love the psychology aspect of this stuff. But you come back to the 757. What's the first meal? What is the first restaurant that you have to hit up? Because
Probably No Pro Grill if it's still there off of Collie. Is that still there?
Yeah.
No Pro Grill?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that place. It was right down the street from our like little house there. It was a beautiful.
What would you order there?
Some kind of, I can't remember, like the chicken. Something got some kind of crazy
funky chicken sandwich or something.
There you go. There you go. I think that's it.
Yeah. My wife would she would always get the funky chicken salad.
It's a good
Which
spot.
is really, I think, isn't it really just a fried chicken sandwich?
I don't know.
I think they got.
I think there's one in Virginia Beach too. At least there used to be.
Yep.
Glenn, we appreciate you being on episode 300, a monumental day.
I'm honored. I had no idea it was episode 300. Thanks, guys.
I mean, we can't tell you all the inside stuff, you know?
That's right. Like that video. That was great.
Yeah, that took me by surprise too.
That's
one thing about. I didn't know that you're gonna. There was no doubt that you still had it. That's one thing about Zach. No material is ever lost or deleted.
Well, but it was deleted because I couldn't log into the account because I couldn't figure out what it was. So it took me, when I said it took me 30 minutes to find it, that also included how am I going to get this off? Because I figured when I played it, it wasn't going to, we needed the audio in there. So
yeah. The crazy thing is that I don't feel like any of us really aged, but then to look back, we might have seasoned up a little bit, but I don't feel like any of us really aged.
Yeah. Well, this is a nice thing we can pretend about too.
Oh, that's great. Glenn, appreciate your time. This has been an absolute blast down memory lane. Tim, 300 episodes, 300 more. Any final thoughts?
For me, just a big thank you to you both for sharing this time with me. I appreciate it. It was great to see you too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Glenn. Really, really appreciate it, Zach. I guess I'll see you at 301.
All right. Toodles. Peace. Thanks for watching.